You've probably seen the headlines, right? India's green energy boom. And it's so easy to just file that under climate change. But what if I told you that's only half the story? What if every single one of those solar panels, every wind turbine, is actually a gear in a much, much bigger machine, an economic engine designed to project power on a global scale? Well, in this explainer, we're going to connect those dots. We'll look at how India's green transition is actually a key part of a grand strategy to totally reshape its role on the world stage. So, check out this quote. This really gets to the heart of it. It's all about a fundamental shift in mindset. For a long time, the goal was just to, well, survive global shocks, to be resilient. But that's a reactive posture. The ambition now, it's to go on the offensive, to become so essential, so deeply woven into the world economy that India isn't just following the rules anymore, it's helping to write them. It's a huge pivot from being a rule taker to a rule shaper. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the big picture, the new grand strategy. Then, we'll dive into the three pillars that hold it all up: the economic engine, the energy that fuels it, and the cities where it all comes to life. And then we'll bring it all back together to see this path to becoming indispensable. All right, let's jump in. First up, this new grand strategy. And I want to be clear, this isn't just a random collection of policies. No, this is a carefully planned evolution. It's all about moving from a defensive position to a much more influential one, really carving out India's place in what is, let's face it, an incredibly competitive world. So how does this strategy actually play out? Well, you can think of it in three big steps. Step one is what's called intelligent import substitution. Now, this isn't old school protectionism. It's more like a smart way to build up domestic strength in really critical sectors. Then comes step two, strategic resilience. This is all about building the shock absorbers, so the country can handle big global crises. But the real endgame, the ultimate goal, is that third step, strategic indispensability. And that brings us to this really fascinating concept, reverse leverage. What does that even mean? Well, it's not about closing off from the world. It's the total opposite. The idea is to weave India so deeply into global supply chains, into these global networks that the world literally comes to rely on it for critical stuff. So that economic interdependence, which can sometimes be a weakness, actually gets flipped on its head and becomes a massive source of strength and influence. Okay, so you want to become indispensable. How do you actually do that? Well, you've got to start with the foundation. And in this case, that means building the core economic engine. Let's dig into how a massive infrastructure push is making that happen. And this is where the thinking has really shifted. See, infrastructure isn't just about a new road here or a new port there anymore. It's now being treated as the primary engine for the entire economy. The goal is for public spending on infrastructure to pull in massive private investment, creating this amazing, self-sustaining cycle of growth. And if you look at the numbers, you can see just how powerful this is. For every single rupee the government spends on infrastructure, the GDP is estimated to grow by 2.5 to 3.5 rupees. That's a huge return on investment. It's not just about the concrete and steel, right? It's about the massive multiplier effect that ripples through the whole economy, unlocking all kinds of new activity. But look, it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about spending smarter. The old way of doing things, building one project in isolation over here, another over there, that's out. Now it's all about system-level planning. They've got this unified digital platform, PM Gati Shakti, that basically makes sure a new highway actually connects seamlessly to a port, which connects to a railway. It's about getting rid of the bottlenecks. And the end goal? It's simple. Drive down the cost of logistics to make Indian products competitive on the world stage. Okay, so you've got this massive new economic engine, but it's going to need a ton of power, right? And that brings us right to the heart of this whole story, India's energy strategy. It's this really fascinating balancing act between going green and meeting the absolutely non-negotiable energy demands of a country that's industrializing at a breakneck pace. Just take a look at this. This chart really shows you the incredible scale of the change that's already happened. You can see that non-fossil fuel sources, so renewables, hydro, nuclear, already make up about half of India's total installed power capacity. I mean, that is a huge, huge achievement. It really puts India right at the forefront of this global energy shift. But here's where we get to the core challenge, the real puzzle. Renewables like solar and wind are fantastic. They're clean, they're getting cheaper, but the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. And if you're trying to become a global manufacturing powerhouse, you need reliable 24/7 power. That is non-negotiable. So the big question is, how do you balance that push for green energy with the need for stable baseload power that keeps the lights on and the factories running? And the answer seems to be a very pragmatic, all-of-the-above approach. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. So yes, they're scaling up renewables at an absolutely record pace. But at the same time, they're investing heavily in things like big battery storage systems to handle that intermittency problem. They're also getting serious about nuclear power again for clean, reliable baseload energy. And super importantly, they're moving to secure their own supply chains for critical minerals, the stuff you need to build all this green tech. It's a strategy designed to build a system that is both green and rock-solid reliable. Okay, so we've got the infrastructure foundation, and we've got the energy to power it, but where does the rubber actually meet the road? Where does all this strategy come to life? Well, it's happening in India's cities. They're being totally reimagined as the central hubs for all this economic growth. And this quote nails another really important idea. It says cities aren't just places where people live, they are a form of critical economic infrastructure. It's a great way to think about it. They're like these incredible machines that pull together people, talent, and money to just supercharge productivity and innovation. And you just have to look at the data. When you see projections for the fastest growing cities in the world, they're just dominated by cities in India. Now, this incredible speed, this massive urbanization, it creates so much opportunity. But you can imagine it also puts a ton of pressure on everything: infrastructure, housing, just getting around. So the challenge becomes pretty clear, doesn't it? For these cities to really become those engines of growth, they can't just get bigger, they have to get smarter. The whole goal is to build infrastructure that can handle all that density and actually boost productivity, instead of just letting growth cause gridlock and stress that ends up hurting the economy. All right, let's step back and pull all these threads together now. We've talked about the big picture grand strategy, the massive infrastructure build, the pragmatic energy transition, and this focus on cities. So, how does this all come together? How does it add up to that ultimate goal of making India indispensable? This table here really helps connect all of the dots. You can see how each of these pillars, infrastructure, energy, urbanization, serves a dual purpose. Take infrastructure. Yeah, it helps India withstand supply shocks, that's the resilience part, but it also creates the super efficient ports and highways needed to become a key node in global trade. That's indispensability. Same with energy. A secure energy mix means autonomy, which is resilience, but it also positions India to be a leader in the green tech the world is going to need. And finally, cities. Well-planned cities can absorb a growing population, sure, but they also become these hotbeds of innovation that create the products and services the world can't do without. And that brings us to the big final question, the one that this entire strategy hinges on. It's a massive gamble, really. Can India successfully embed its life into global supply chains in a way that transforms economic interdependence from a potential vulnerability into its greatest source of strength? I mean, it is a bold, ambitious vision. You can see all the pieces being moved into place. The real question now is whether it will all come together to fundamentally reshape the global economic order.